Thank you for joining Effortless Attraction. My name is Evelyn McAleer. I'm the author of A Life You Want, Effortless, and The Woman's Journey. I'm a life coach, business mentor, and inspirational speaker. And my greatest value is making a difference in people's lives. So I hope through these podcasts I can make a difference to your life.
Today's Effortless Attraction podcast is sponsored by Emma Weaver, CEO and founder of Mental Wealth International. Mental health awareness and suicide prevention are as important in the workplace as occupational safety. We, at Mental Wealth International, listen to the needs of your organization. We tailor a bespoke package of workshops, training, staff well-being reviews to best serve your teams, staff, employees, and your business. For more information, visit www.mentalwealthinternational.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us on another Effortless Attraction podcast. And today I am joined by Dr. Avrum Weiss, and I've pronounced that correctly. I've taken my time because I was going to do the Irish pronunciation there. And Avrum is from Maine in the United States. I'm going to read out a little short bio on himself. So Dr. Weiss is a psychotherapist, an award-winning author and speaker. His decade-long work on understanding the internal lives of men culminated with his recently published bestseller, Hidden in Plain Sight: How Men's Fears of Women Shape Their Intimate Relationship. Dr. Weiss is a regular contributor to the Psychology Today website and offers workshops nationally about psychotherapy with men and helping men and women understand each other. He practices psychotherapy online from his home on the island in mid-coast Maine, specializing in psychotherapy groups for men and psychotherapy consultation. Thank you so much, sir, for your time today.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to talking.
Wonderful. So we said before we came on here, I am so curious. I never write down questions, Avrum. I just allow the conversation to flow. And as long as I know enough, and I know plenty here now, and
Okay.
So I'm just going to, will you explain that to us? Because I'm going to tell you in a moment why I was drew to you. There was a question. I thought, seriously, is that the truth? So tell us about your decade-long, was this a calling to you, a passion, thinking, this is something that I want to uncover more?
So my brain works in unusual ways. So I've had a lifetime of sort of noticing things that get overlooked and getting intrigued with them. And then as I sort of learn, I mean, I'm pursuing my own interests. I'm pursuing things that I'm interested in. And then they seem so obvious to me that I don't understand why other people don't see them. So from my perspective, I don't see how you could have a conversation with a man for more than 10 minutes and not understand how frightened of women they are.
And that leads me to why we're here today.
Yes.
I read something like that out to my husband, my new husband. I've got a brand new one there.
Congratulations.
And I said, do you believe that men are frightened of women? I said, so I'm very, very much intrigued. Or is it just different nationalities, or is it across the board, Avrum?
Oh, absolutely. I've done interviews in countries around the world, and I think it is almost universal among straight men. And I am curious to hear what your husband's response was.
Maybe I asked him in an angry voice, are you afraid of me? He said, no, I'm not.
Right.
I think, no, I said, do you believe, is that true? But maybe he's seen afraid being as in afraid to have a conversation. We did have it this morning again. We did go over this question. And he said perhaps of the overthinking woman, where you would refrain from saying anything because she's going to overthink it every road but the right road. And so you're afraid maybe of saying anything, so you don't say anything at all.
Right. So of course, that question was being asked by a woman. And I'm fairly certain had I asked the question, and it was just the two of us there, I would have gotten a very different answer. Thus, the first part of the book title is Hidden in Plain Sight. So in my experience, when you suggest to a man that he might be afraid of a woman, you first get a very brief defensiveness, like usually they kind of bow up and resent the suggestion that they might be afraid of anything, much less a woman. But really within a minute or two, you can see the wheels start to turn, and it's an idea that changes how they think about a lot of things. And so it just keeps unfolding with men. With women, it's generally more, they think I'm crazy. There's no way it could be true. And it's very difficult. The only thing that convinces them is when their partner starts to say things like, yeah, that's kind of true. But for women, it seems absurd that men who are in the dominant position in the world, how and why would men be afraid of women?
Yeah. I work with women there. We had a group call this morning. And again, I read them out your bio, and I said, is there any questions you would like me to put forward? We were a bit dumbfounded. Is that the truth? We couldn't figure that out.
Right.
How are men afraid? Or is it the case in most relationships, though, Avrum?
It is not only true in most relationships, it's actually of central importance in most relationships. So there's a graphic in the book that shows, I don't know what you would call it in Ireland, a teeter-totter, the kids seesaw, teeter-totter, where the kids go up and down. What would you call that?
A seesaw.
Seesaw, okay. So it shows a man and a woman on a seesaw, and the woman is on the ground and the man is up in the top position. And so I show the picture to groups and I say, who's in the dominant position? Who's in control here? And most people say, well, the man is, he's on top, he's in the dominant position. And then the longer they look at it, they see the woman on the bottom has one of her feet off of the seesaw. And then you realize it's the woman who's in the dominant position, even though she's on the bottom, because if she takes the second foot off the seesaw, he comes crashing to earth. So it's counterintuitive, but to understand the ways in which people in dominant positions are completely reliant on the people they are dominating.
Say that again. People that are in dominant
let me give you an
positions are
example.
completely reliant. Yeah, go.
Let me give you an example. Martin Luther King said, segregation scars the soul of the perpetrator as much as it does the victims. So you can't oppress another group of people without being harmed yourself. It's not possible.
Interesting. I remember, now I know it's not the book, but years ago reading Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I think out of that book, what I do remember, and I do believe I've heard you speak about something similar, it called it the rubber band syndrome, where a couple are perhaps in a relationship and everything seems to be going perfectly well and fine. And then he starts to pull back and withdraw and go back, as they talk about maybe the man cave. And he will go so far. And the woman, and I know this, I would definitely say this from the woman's point of view, we want to know what's wrong. We want to tell me what's happening. Can I help you? I want to fix this problem. And so he expands or goes away to wherever to sort things out in his head, which I think it does take sometimes men a wee bit longer. Sometimes, I can't say that for all men. And then whenever he's sorted out, just like the elastic band, it comes back again. And he believes, I'll just continue on as life, as where I left it. But the woman is, hold on a wee minute. There's a few things we need to discuss here or go back over. I know that definitely, because I would see that with my husband. Now, if he had stuff to think about, or if I felt that there was a distance, share it with me. Tell me, can we work? Can I help?
Oh yeah. So I laughed as you were telling the story. And the reason I laughed is because as a woman, you think the story starts with a man withdrawing, because women don't see it the way men see it. So the way men see that is men don't think it starts with them withdrawing. Their experience is that it starts with women pursuing, and that their withdrawal is in response to. So women think that what's happening is they're trying to make a connection. But what men are hearing is, you screwed up, you failed, you're inadequate. because men are raised to believe that they are responsible for your happiness. And so if you come to a man and say, I'd like our relationship to be better, or I'd like to be closer to you, or can we talk? Men mostly hear that as an indictment, as that they are failing as a man. So they're not withdrawing because the wind's out of the north. They're withdrawing because they think you're saying you're useless.
Well, what I took from that story was that the woman didn't ask to pursue until he started to distance. But as you say, there probably was a knock on for starters. That do you feel then, okay, on in a case like that, is it the intimacy, is it the getting closer, that if people are dating, that does that frighten men, that they get into relationships, that they need to step back a wee bit?
Well, I think intimacy frightens everyone, if we're honest. I think intimacy is a scary thing because it's a vulnerability, it's an opening up. And I'm not saying that it starts with women. I'm saying that it's a loop and it's arbitrary to point anywhere as the start. It's a feedback loop that men and women engage in with each other. The problem is that over time, there's more and more distance often in the relationship because the women are pursuing and the men are withdrawing. And so it's not really helpful to try to figure out who started it. It's more helpful to understand what each of them are contributing to the pattern. So for example, the Gottman Institute, which does a lot of research on couples therapy, their data suggests they can predict how an argument's going to go by what happens in the first 3 minutes. And they teach women to do what they call a slow startup. Like, don't jump right in with the most important thing you want to talk about, because men will withdraw. Men will get scared and withdraw. So they teach women to ease into the conversation and build up to what it is and make a connection first, which it's not, not that unexpected a thing to think it would work. I mean, if you were in a sales meeting, they would teach you the same thing. You don't walk in the door and say, buy my product. So how's the wife and kids? How are you doing? What do you think about the weather? How's things at work? You would build a relationship and then make your ask.
Yeah. Now, there's things that I absolutely, I with men, I absolutely love how they think. I love that it is a direct answer. Here's something that I have been noticing with podcasts. A lot of my guests had been men. And the reason was because when I reached out to ask a man, would you like to do the podcast if I give a date and a time, or we could accommodate, it was always booked there and then. Sign me up. Done. Reach out to, now not all females, because I have had females on my podcast. Reach out to a female, right, let me check my diary. Can I get back to you on that now? How would we be? So it's, and for me, I'm like, oh, I can't be doing with this. I love the male approach of, let's just do that and not overthink the whole thing and do it and get it done.
I think there are a lot of women like you. I mean, I've certainly met a lot of women who like men, who like the style that men interact with and like to hang around men. I was in a workshop once, and the leader made the group incredibly uncomfortable, because a group of men and women. And she said, all therapists. And she asked the group, how many of you like men? And some people shot their hand up right away, but most people sort of went, well, yes and no. Which man are you talking about? It depends on the circumstances. And it's interesting. Here's a group of therapists who are working with men, and a large number of people in the room weren't sure they liked them. And I thought, that's kind of a problem.
Who couldn't love men? So here's the thing now, Avrum, and I talk to quite a lot of women about this, and actually men that are on dating sites. Perhaps they've been through a divorce, and maybe not going out and socializing as much. So everything's done online with the dating. Now, I do hear some hair-raising stories, especially, I suppose, because I'm hearing from the women where the men are coming from. I think, what is this all about? Really, is the day of chivalry, is the day of courtship, is that finished? Is it gone? Why do you ever be talking to many that are dating on the online thing?
I actually do a lot of that because I'm actually a consultant to the matchmaking company, which is the largest matchmaking company, either in the States or the world, I believe the world. So I do regular interviews with them about dating and relationships. Any of your listeners are interested, I think if you just Google the matchmaking company, you'll see where those interviews are.
That's the name. That's the name.
The matchmaking company, yes.
Okay.
I don't think chivalry is dead. I think that like many things in life, dating has become a commodity. Unfortunately, this is true for a lot of things that, I moved several years ago. I live in an island with 1,200 year-round residents. And so almost every transaction I have is either with a neighbor or someone I know. And if I don't know them, I know somebody who knows them or they know me. So it's the
Sounds very much like Ireland.
Yeah, I've been to Ireland, by the way, and I describe it as the world's friendliest place. I say, if you stand anywhere in Ireland for 30 seconds and look like you don't know what you're doing, somebody will come up to you and ask you if you need help.
That's right.
So yes, it also looks very similar to where I live. But I think so much of that has been taken out of people's lives that dating, which used to be a very personal thing, has almost become like job interviewing. And I think if it gets reduced to that, A, it's not going to be something people enjoy. B, I'm not sure how helpful it's going to be.
Yeah. It is all about, I suppose, the confidence and the communication. When you're dealing with male and female and relationships, it has to be top of the list there. Is it, Avrum, communication between couples?
It is, but if that's 1A, I would say 1B is fun. I think people lose track of the fact that a date is not a job interview. A date is supposed to be something fun. And so I always suggest to people, don't invite people to have coffee on a first date. What a high pressure situation. There's nothing to do but stare at each other and talk about, that's awful. So go for a walk or go roller skating or go do something, invite the other person to do something that you like to do, because you'll be putting your best foot forward if you're doing something that you enjoy. And then even if the date doesn't go well, hopefully you had a good time because you're doing something that you enjoy.
Yeah. Intimacy, I'm sure it's probably in part of your courses with males. Are they afraid, if we get to that, because I do have a lot of male and female listeners, and again, a subject that I'm very passionate on too, and I've dealt with people in coaching, is about intimacy within a relationship. And I know that people see sex as, oh, don't talk about that, or they get embarrassed about the subject, but it is a huge part of life. I mean, it was here and day and it will be here until we all draw our last breath. Are there any things, I suppose, we'll start with men, a list of things that come up, and then we'll shift to the women when it comes to intimacy, about communicating with your partner or how to have a better intimate relationship with them?
You're talking about for tips for men in terms of how to be closer to women?
Correct.
Is that what you're asking? Yeah, I think the challenge for men are taught to be in charge, to be in control, and to be responsible for anyone else's happiness. And so the challenge for men when they're sitting with a woman who's trying to go deeper with them is to resist the urge to withdraw, but instead to sort of hang in there and maybe even lean in a little bit and say, they might say, that question made me uncomfortable. I don't feel close enough to you yet to answer that question. But that's a way of not dishonoring the fact that you're uncomfortable, but that's actually a very intimate thing to say to someone, like, I don't feel like I know you well enough to answer that question yet. So to learn ways to stay in the game and not take your marbles and go home when you get uncomfortable.
And what about then when we get to intercourse, intimacy, and on that sort of level, so say, for example, a couple is together for years. Do they find that difficult, that subject to approach with the other person? Maybe we could do something different today.
Well, I think typically, yes, people do find it very difficult to talk about it. You said something really interesting a while ago. You said it's something that everyone does. Well, it's sort of fascinating to me that it is something that everyone does, but we don't talk about it. We don't talk about bathroom habits either. And that's something that everyone does. So we have these areas that we've sort of attached shame to. It's interesting that they're both bodily functions. We typically have a lot of shame attached to our bodies. And so couples do have a hard time. And this is a bit of a tangent, but to me, in my experience, there's a topic couples have more trouble talking about than sex, and that's money. In my experience, couples will talk about sex all day long before they'll talk about money. And that has nothing to do with your body. But again, people have a hard time talking about it. And you can get in a lot of trouble that way, not talking about money.
I heard that or read it some road that if there was a room full of people and you asked them to talk about their bank balance or their sex life, they'll choose sex life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, as a therapist, I'm in the habit of asking people about things they don't normally bring up. So I ask people about money often. And, it's fascinating to ask a man. A man will say, they'll talk all around it and say, well, I'm doing very well. I'll say, really, how much do you make a year? They look at me like I've asked them the length of their penis. It's like I've asked this. I'm like, it's just your income. It's not like why did you tell me you're doing very well? I assume you want me to understand something about your life. I don't know what very well means. I'm just trying to understand what you're telling me.
Yeah, I would say quite a response if anyone was asked here to mind your own business, because it's a reflection really. If anyone knew what I was earning, and we're always comparing ourselves to someone else.
Exactly. Like, do you know what your dad earned?
I don't.
I don't either. Why? It's such an important piece of information. I ask people that question frequently. Very rarely does anyone say to me, so I know my dad was a teacher, so I know he didn't earn a lot, but I don't know what teachers made. I know we were short on money, but I don't know how much he earned.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes, I would think it's probably a subject even people don't want to sit with themselves and have to sort out financial things. It's like, oh, can we find something else to do now, or to put it to the back burner?
Particularly if they're unhappy. I want to go back to what we were talking about a moment ago because I want to add another piece. So the thing I've been working on recently, so it's occurred to me, so men are afraid of women and they often feel criticized. The thing men talk about most often when women aren't around is how criticized they feel by their partner and how they feel like they can't get it right, that they try so hard to please her. It seems like the rules always change. She's always moving the goalposts. It doesn't matter how much I do, I will never please her. I hear this a lot from men. So I got curious, like, are they just paranoid? Or is something coming from women that is there some reality? So I started asking women an interesting question. The question I've been asking women is, what did you learn from your mother about men? Not just in what she said, but in what she showed you in the way she treated your father. What did you learn from your mother? And I don't know if you want to answer the question, but I'll be interested to hear your answer. What did you learn from your mom?
There's a few things have come to my mind now. I always actually remember my mother and father. Now she passed away when she was 45, but I do always remember, even on the sofa in our living room, they used to lie up and that together. So it was never a thing in our house that that end of things, they would lie and cuddle with other, and we were grand with that. And that has been something I think that has gone through even with myself and my daughter. There's no problem with that. I have a notion that there was many a day my father dreaded coming home from work because it was not the mobile phone. But I think when he would have stepped through the front door, my mother would have had a list of everything that we were doing wrong. I'm quite sure we drove her crazy. But I remember he did actually say it. He says, there's days I'm just like, God, when I step through that door, what is... And she'd say, you need to go and sort them out. They were doing this and they were doing that and things like that. So those are two things. We always definitely had plenty of laughter in our house. Definitely we had loads of fun and laughter.
Yeah.
But like most houses, what I always felt that, yes, Dad would have been the main support in the house? Mum would have, how she would. I thought whenever they passed away, it was better that she went first before him, because all Mummy had to do was look about maybe a car insurance. That's all she had to pay for.
Right.
So those are the things he probably had to, I think, that way. And as far as finances were concerned, but those other two things, when you ask what did my mother show me, she showed me what laughter was and fun, and actually pushing the boundaries perhaps with Dad, where he would keep saying, Rose, stop coming out to that idle chat. But it was always good chat.
Yeah. So your mother taught you that you can be intimate with a man, physically intimate and cuddle. Your mother taught you that men can be fun to be with and enjoyable. But she also kind of taught you that men are the disciplinarians, and maybe to be a little afraid of them.
Yeah.
And
that's right, because she says we would never have listened to her. And funny, would you believe,
right.
You're right, because I would see myself and my sister in years to come, then I became the parent. Right. And I understood what my mother went through whenever we were younger. And I felt that I was her at times.
So your family sounds delightful, and it sounds you have a nice smile on your face as you talk about it. So it sounds like you had a lovely experience. For what I'm hearing most often from women is that what they learn from their mother is don't rely on men. You can't count on them. Don't trust men. And don't expect to be intimate with men. Don't expect to be close. That's something you'll get from your girlfriends, not your husband. And so then we can understand men feeling criticized a little, makes more sense when we hear what women learn from their moms. And so women are carrying some of those negative beliefs about men unconsciously into their relationships, and the men can sense it. You know, the men are aware that those negative beliefs and attitudes are there.
There was a guy, a neurocoach I was speaking to one day, and I spoke about this, that the brain will always search for evidence in order to prove you're right. So, for example, if a lady had been in a relationship where, and then the traits then keep following on and on and on and on.
Yeah, and you find what you're looking for.
Yeah, and you prove yourself right every time. I can't trust men. There is no good men. Men are always disrespectful.
Yeah, it's the definition of the word prejudice. Prejudice is from the roots prejudge. That's what prejudice is my mother used to say, don't confuse me with facts, my mind is made up.
Excellent. I like that. Don't confuse me with facts, my mind is already made up.
But that is how we all work. We're not aware of it, but that is how we all work.
Yeah. What about the men? Do they learn then from how they see their fathers, or is it the fear that has come from the mothers?
No, the fear comes from the fathers and from the culture. There are so many messages. There's a book by an author by the name of Judy Chu, who wrote a book, When Boys Become Boys. And she spent 2 years sitting in a pre-K and kindergarten class watching how negative socialization and stereotypes are taught to boys. And this was a school that was a very liberal, progressive school. They tried their hardest not to socialize the boys this way. And the parents tried their hardest not to. But these little 5-year-old boys, when the teacher's back were turned, created a club called the We Hate Girls Club. So it's endemic in the culture. And no matter how we try to protect our children from it, they pick it up everywhere.
Yeah. Fascinating. So what could we offer, or what could you offer now, Avrum? Say someone that's listening to the show today, they are married, and I know couples that are in marriages, and they would like it to be better. Do you think, and ask this question, even though, say, after years of being with the same person and the wee hurts and pains and all together, and then, do you believe if there's still love, there's still hope for a marriage to survive?
Oh, of course, absolutely. I mean, I am married, so I better believe that. No, I mean, I think.
What's the best? What could we offer? Something that's, so for a woman, this is maybe what you could do today, something different, or for a man.
Well, it wasn't my idea, but what a lot of couples have told me is that they have bought the book and they're reading it together, which I think is just delightful. So they read one chapter and then they make time to talk about the chapter. Then they read the second chapter and they make time. And what happens when they do that is women learn so much about the man they're with that he has not been able to articulate to her. But as they read the book, he can say, yes, that's me. That's exactly what it's like for me. And usually for her, it's just a shocking experience. I did a workshop with men and women. We met for 2 days. And then 4 months later, we met for 2 days again. So they had 4 months to go back to their relationships and see what change it would make. And what was interesting is the women made more changes in their relationships in those 4 months than the men did. The book had more of an impact on the women than it did on the men.
Fascinating. And another thing too, it's down to, I talk quite a lot about our own self-worth, our own self-love. I mean, to be in the best place too, because if we're totally reliant on the man or the woman to make my life happy, to bring me joy, it's also going to go the other road as well. Absolutely. So would you find that that has to be a big part of your work, Avrum, on people learning how to love themselves?
You know, we use that expression a lot, but it can be misleading because part of loving yourself is being loved by someone else. That's how you come to. So when you were born, you didn't have any opinion about yourself the moment you were born. You started developing ideas about yourself by the way people treated you. So if you were born and your mom picked you up and held you close and soothed you and nursed you and looked adoringly at you, your self-concept becomes, I'm a lovable person. So a lot of how we feel about ourselves, it's not just something you do on your own. It's by being in relationships with people who love you and think you're fabulous and adore you. And in those relationships, you develop a good feeling about yourself.
But say someone that didn't really think much of themselves, that didn't value themselves, something maybe that happened in the past. And do we not continually attract that which I talk about energy quite a lot, that which we project about ourselves? I mean, you know, we can see people that are so vulnerable, and then you have sort of narcissist behavior that they attract. You're an easy, that one attracts to the other.
This was one of the big disagreements between Freud and Jung, and I am on the Jung side. So Freud said what you said, that we are sort of condemned to relive our problematic patterns from our past. Jung said, well, it's not quite like that. Jung said, we are going to pick people with whom we recreate those patterns, but what we're doing is we're picking someone to work out a different ending with.
Correct. No, I believe both of those, part of both of those, absolutely. Yeah, because I see everyone as my master teacher. What can I learn from this? Or that our paths were to cross for a certain amount of time, just like our paths were to cross today. And what we create from this, perhaps, I always say, it can make a difference.
So everyone's complaint about their partner is a complaint about the other person, but they're also talking about their own reactivity and intolerance. Like people say the craziest things, you know, they'll say, well, I spoke with someone yesterday who said, you know, my wife keeps agreeing to do things and then she doesn't get them done. I can't rely on her. But he's never talked to her about that. So I don't know if she's an unreliable person, or she had a different understanding of what she said she was going to do, or she's angry at him. So I don't know what's going on, but he's made his whole mind made up that that's just a bad thing about her that drives him crazy.
Yeah, but she's unreliable. I'll do it myself. And normally that's the woman, sometimes her perception. Yeah. I'll do it myself.
Right. Exactly. But of course, every time she does it herself, she is demeaning her partner.
She's
expressing her lack of confidence in him. Instead of saying to him, I really would like you to do this, but I'm worried you're not going to do it. Can I count on you to do this? I want to let you know this is important to me, and I'm going to be terribly hurt if you don't do it.
That's quite a long script of a thing to say to a man.
But that's the whole truth.
I remember a lady
Hang on
saying,
before you go. If we don't do the long script and she just said, will you I don't know, pick up the kids after school today, and he forgets, it's not a fair measure of whether he's reliable because she didn't tell him how much it means to her. You've got to tell him how much it means.
Yeah, that's how I'm thinking, seriously, is that how scripted that I have to be to let someone, this is extremely important that you get this done. It's almost like talking to a child, though, Avrum. A
No, I
grown
think the
man that is your
opposite.
husband.
No, I think it's like the way you talk to an adult. A child, you say, do it. And then you yell at them when they don't do it, which is how I think women often talk to men. An adult, you say, look, I want you to understand the importance of this to me. I really don't want you to let me down. Because if you just say, let's make it less loaded than picking, let's just say, get some chicken on the way home from work. But what you don't say is, one of the neighbors is coming over and she's a new friend and I really want it to go well. I think we could, so I really want to cook all you say is get some chicken, and he forgets. You think that he is not honoring all of this stuff, which is important to you, which he doesn't know anything about. He thinks it's just a chicken if you don't tell him.
That's amazing, thinking that. And I would, listening to that I would think that if I had to come out with the reason why I wanted, I would feel I was belittling the man, that he was useless by telling him all this information. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd be thinking that he would think, yeah, I'm not a child, you don't need to tell me all this information. But it's important then,
I think treating him like a child would be, and the store is on this block, and go 2 blocks straight and then left.
I think I've done that too.
The 5th aisle, and don't forget to look for this. That would be treating him like a child.
And don't talk to strangers.
but you don't talk to children about what is emotionally important to you. You talk to you talk to an adult. And otherwise, what often happens is she says, don't forget the chicken. He forgets it. And then he thinks he doesn't care about her, but it's just a damn piece of chicken. He's not, if she would tell him why it matters, I think he'll remember.
Fascinating. Well, there we go. But I was going to say, there was a lady, she was looking something lifted down. She said she could have easily have done it herself, but I think she wanted to include her husband in this because she just does quite a lot for herself. I think the word she uses, could I possibly use those wonderful strong arms of yours to lift this down? And he done it because she said she was, but it was how, and it was in the asking of how she asked, rather than saying, will you lift that down for me?
And he wants to please her. She has given him an opportunity to do something to please her. We all look for ways to please our partners, and because we want to, because it feels good to please your partner.
So is that the key to it all? Men just want to please women.
Close. Men just want women to not be upset with them. And the road to that is to please them. So you would not believe how much time and energy men spend worrying that their partner is unhappy with them.
Wow.
I had a guy.
It's sad in a way too.
It is. It's
because
very sad.
I know we can be very absolutely, yeah. And even when it comes to driving, now there's a whole lot of things. Jim will be listening to. Sorry, Jim.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of things going in my head. I know
when he's
in the passenger side of the car, he says
that's
nothing.
Exactly what happens. Once you start thinking about this, it just keeps expanding out, and you see how many ways it plays out in your life and how many places you could change that.
Well, what's the issue with women that we just can't button up? Just say nothing. Why do we have to pass comment?
Because women are trained from early in life to talk to each other and connect and be close. So most women, when they're younger, play games. First of all, they talk about relationships all the time. So-and-so likes so-and-so. So-and-so doesn't like so-and-so. So-and-so's not. So you're always practicing and learning about relationships. And you play games about relationships. You play house, you play doctor, you play school. All are games learning about relationships. so in general, when men and women get together, women have a lot more practice at relationships than men do. We kind of don't know what you're talking about.
And then sometimes when the female starts talking, I always ask, can you get to A to B in the shortest time frame, please, as well? Because they'll go around the country before they get to the end of the story. So your book is called Hidden in Plain Sight, How Men's Fears of Women Shape Their Intimate Relationship. This is the book that couples are buying and reading a chapter, discussing it.
Yes.
And imagine even approaching that. Now, I'm just thinking of Irish couples here. Again, maybe different nationalities talk and speak differently to each other. For the woman to say, I'm buying 2 of these books, would the woman be saying, and we'll take it, and we'll take a chapter about it and then discuss this. But to be open then too, if the open discussion started, said Avrum, that if he's allowed to be honest and open and vulnerable, that she's prepared to listen.
Yes. And that's what the book helps men to do, because that men can say, yes, that's what it's like for me. And these are things that they might not be able to articulate on their own, but then they're reading the book and he's saying, yeah, and she's saying, you're not like that, are you? And he's like, yes, I'm exactly like that. And it helps them to be able to talk about it.
There you go. Well, now I can understand when I asked Jim the question, are men afraid of women? Because you said it was coming from a woman's end. Fascinating. As I said to you, it's all curiosity. I'm really curious to find out about people, how they tick and communication. Yeah. And does ever your wife say to you, stop being the doctor?
I've been doing this for 50 years. And so I think in my 30s, that was more of an issue. But to me, it's sort of so seamless at this point that I don't think I act like a doctor. I think when I'm doing my professional work, I am myself. So I think that's less true now. I think for people when they get older, and it's the interplay between the two is more seamless.
So there's never a time in your kitchen when she turns around to say something to you and you say, now, darling, you could have said that a different way.
Well, I might say that, but I don't think I'm speaking as a doctor. I think I'm speaking as a husband. I think I'm speaking as a husband who has thought an awful lot about relationships. And usually she's receptive. So we have an apocryphal story between us. It's a little thing, but it sums it all up. She said to me once, you should really change your shirt. That doesn't look good on you. And I said, well, obviously I picked this shirt because I like it. So I don't think you're the expert on whether the shirt looks good on me. However, if you say to me, you don't like this shirt and it's not very attractive, I will run upstairs and change my shirt because I'm a guy. I don't really care about what I'm wearing, but I enjoy pleasing you. So if you say, oh, why don't you wear that yellow shirt? You look so handsome in it. I will take 3 steps at a time running upstairs. So I'm just helping her. I'm sort of saying, here's a way to make things
wording.
Yeah.
See, that fascinates me. I love that. It's just a rewording of something that you thought, well, that's what I meant to say, but it didn't come out like that.
It's not just a rewording. It's a fundamentally different approach. When she said, change your shirt, that doesn't look good, she was taking the top of the teeter-totter, the seesaw position. She was saying, I'm a woman, so I know better, and I'm correcting you. Nobody likes to be corrected. But if she says, oh, I'm really attracted to you when you wear that yellow shirt, who wouldn't go change their shirt?
Mm-hmm.
In the first case, she's telling me I'm doing something wrong. In the second case, she's saying, I'd like to be attracted to you. I'm all
yes, and that's what the man's hearing.
Yeah. Well, she was saying.
I don't know.
She was saying that. She was saying, you're wearing the wrong shirt.
I have heard when Jim would come out with things, and it's, and how I hear it, and then I say, well, if I said something a different way, he said, well, that's what I meant. So I often think, does it the same then, the root apply then to the women? I don't like that shirt on you.
You
Rather than you look more handsome. Yes, it
Yeah.
is a different approach. It is a different
It is
approach.
a
You look
different
more
approach. And we all have to learn to talk to people, not the way that we're used to, but the way that works.
Mhm.
So when you talk
I
to someone, you want it to go well.
I read in, I think, that book where men, and this was a bit of a eye opener for me. The word would and could. For a woman, and I've asked this to so many women, do you see a difference between the word would and could? And they not really, could you do that for me? Would you do that for me? But for a man hearing the words, they asked the man, and he said one was telling, the other one was asking.
Yeah.
I think it was could was telling,
Right.
would was asking. So
So
I
that-
made an effort.
Yeah.
I wrote it in one of my books. I made an effort to say would
Right.
you, because to me they were the same.
But it doesn't matter. If you're giving a talk to a group, you're watching the group and you're seeing how they're responding to what you're saying. And when they respond well, you say more about that. And when they don't respond well, you take that out of your talk because it didn't go well. You might have thought it was brilliant, but it didn't go well.
Yeah. It's wonderful it's wonderful to say knowledge is power, to know these things, because look, I would say most people around the world would love a better, more connected relationships, even with work colleagues, if it's a romantic relationship, whatever it is. And if that means just changing something about me, because I'm quite sure after that list that you have come out with, and once again, I do apologize, Jim. This is for you. I love you. And you do look really handsome in that black shirt.
It always means changing something about ourselves. Relationships go badly when you think the answer is changing the other person.
Oh, surely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. Well, that has been delightful. Thank you so much, Avrum. And your book, it's on Amazon?
It is.
So there you go. And it's on it's the ebook as well, isn't it? You have it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can, if you go to my website, which is avrumweissphd.com, you'll find the link to buy the book there, as well as my earlier books. Also, if any women are interested in being interviewed on the question of what did your mom teach you about men, I'm doing those interviews now, and I'm happy to schedule a time to talk with any woman who would like to talk about that. Just send me an email on the website and I will schedule a time to talk with you.
Great. Well, I'll put your website details in the description under the podcast.
Appreciate it.
And you will also get Avrum. He's on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Yes.
And reach out. That has been delightful. So thank you, sir.
Very enjoyable.
You do look very handsome in I can see you now, your navy and blue striped shirt. Tell your wife she done well.
I will. She'll love that.
Avrum, thank you so much for your time.
Enjoyed talking with you.
If you would like to advertise your business by becoming a sponsor on an upcoming Effortless Attraction podcast, send an email to evelyn@evelynmcalew.com.